You guys hear me okay? Yeah? Thank you, Matt. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to, this is now our third Black Mountain Sangha retreat at Camp Stevens, and our second, annual fall retreat, and our first ever 3-night retreat, which is just amazing. You know, how fortunate we are to have this beautiful place to practice in, so close to home, right? I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge some amazing people without whom we would not be here, I promise. So it would be, Nora, Susan Cooper, and June for all your help with registration and checking in. It's a really big job, and registering and organizing a retreat is, it's like a 4-month process, as some of you know, right? So, yeah. And then we have David, Kevin, Matt, and Steve. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming in early and setting up this beautiful, beautiful place. Taking off work for the day. So much gratitude, right? Then introducing some other people. You guys met Matt, who is a senior student in Black Mountain Sangha, and we're really fortunate to have his voice now as an apprentice leader in our leadership circle. And then Jen, my teacher trainee. Jen is a senior Sangha member with also over a decade or 12 years of practice. And she's also been working with me now for several years, bit by bit, learning to teach mindfulness-based stress reduction as well as mindfulness in general. And it's a really tall order. For any of you who have had MBSR, it's a gold standard class which requires really intense training to teach it well. And it's challenging, it's time-consuming, and Jen has persisted despite a demanding job and a really busy family life. So we're really fortunate to have her talent here. Yeah. And then Jillian, also a senior student with over a decade of practice, brings a lot to our leadership circle. Particularly, Jillian has attended many, many, many residential retreat nights, both on the West Coast here with Spirit Rock and on the East Coast at IMS. And because of that experience, she's really able to assist us in holding this stable container that we have. It's a big part of running a retreat to create this container, this safe container, so that everything is taken care of. You have all your announcements, so then you can just practice in silence. So she's really uniquely suited to support us in that. And then Lisa, my friend and fellow yogi, will be guiding yoga over the next 2 days. So we're really fortunate to have her too. And we welcome her to her first experience with a Vipassana retreat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, we are on Kumeyaay land, so we honor their people, living, and ancestors in gratitude. Yeah. Big bows to everyone. Yeah. So it's tradition in many kinds of Dharma trainings, at the openings of the trainings, to reflect on, to explore, and to take what we call the 3 refuges. And many of you are really familiar with these, but we aim each time we do the refuges to help you to maybe look at them in a different way, to reflect on them a little differently, so that they don't become stale, as can often happen with repeated retreats over and over again. So for newer people, for us here on retreat, we think of a refuge as, refuges at times of possible challenge, and retreats can, and this one may be challenging for some people, possibly. If you can think of such challenges as a storm, then you can envision maybe a retreat like a port or a harbor that can provide you the safety and stability that you might need to weather that rough patch on your retreat. For residential retreats, refuges are really guides and supports that you seek from inside yourself, primarily when you're faced with these challenges. And particularly for our retreat, because our subject matter will remind you a few times that when your level of distress arises above a 6 on a 10-point scale. You'll hear us, again, use that a lot. And by distress, we mean emotional suffering of some kind, physical pain, mental struggles in the mind. So these refuges can serve you really well, particularly in those times when your distress level is above a 6. Particularly if you're not able to have a small group practice meeting or an individual meeting upcoming, we would encourage you to start to reflect on the refuges, and we'll talk about them in a minute. Short retreats like this one can run the gamut from, believe it or not, a dark night of the soul, all in like 2 days, to, this has happened to me, or maybe just a run-of-the-mill kind of not really exciting time of practice, which can also be stressful because you could be like, where's my insight, right? Or it could be a mix of both, dark night of the soul, boring, right? And each of these are a part of Dharma training. So if your distress level, again, is above a 6, that would be the time to turn to these refuges that we're next going to talk about. They are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as many of you know. The refuge of the Buddha can often seem the most, off-putting. For me it was in the beginning, because it might seem like we're sort of, we might be like bowing to some kind of deity or supreme religious figure. But, he was a human just like anybody else, a truth seeker, actually, a truth finder. Not much different than us. We're all here looking for truth, really. So what does it mean to take refuge in a person, right? What? A person, right? A person. And just for fun, not much is said about the Buddha as a person. So I'll describe what's written about him, just for fun. He was 6 feet tall with a golden complexion, coal black hair, which he wore long until he became a monk and shaved it. He is said to have been uncommonly striking in his appearance, and like many spiritual teachers, was a masterful public speaker, able to enthrall, delight, and inspire his listeners. He was always unflustered, polite, and smiling in the face of criticism, and he invited others to do the same. He was intensely creative, having a brilliant scientific mind that conceived and synthesized the whole of the Dharma, many parts of which are corroborated by neuroscientists today. He was a poet, as most of us know, quite skilled in double and triple metaphors, really. He had a sense of humor, comparing like hungry monks to dung beetles. And this is what I think is the most interesting when I was researching this. On the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, anybody know Myers-Briggs, right? Okay, all right. He would be an INTJ, a creative idealist. Anybody an INTJ? Yeah. A creative idealist with a keen sense of personal integrity and a desire to help others, right? And he was a great listener, as that personality type is. However, it's an introvert, right? He needed some alone time after his charismatic discourses to recharge. Above all, though, he was considered the epitome of wisdom and compassion in action, which makes sense given that the Dharma has these 2 branches, wisdom and heart teachings. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, we can consider that vast pool of wisdom and compassion, as well as an expansive awakened awareness. And then we can then draw on some teachings that we have known ourselves that maybe we haven't connected with for a while. We can, so you're in that distress of a 7, you can, what teachings do I know, right? This is actually pondering, what teachings do I know, is taking refuge in the Buddha. You can also remember wisdom and compassion and awareness that's already inside you. You know, we all are wiser than we know. We can call on these inner energies, your Buddha nature. That's what we call it, right? The Buddha said, be a lamp unto yourself, pointing to the idea that we can each follow the light of our own inner lamp to find the answers that we seek. It helps to have a map, maybe. It would be the Dharma, maybe a guide, but this lamp in here, it is really a powerful guide. So we're going to do a guided reflection now to get a sense of how you might invoke the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha in times of difficulty. So I invite you to close your eyes and then soften your body for a moment, taking a few mindful breaths. And bring to mind some struggle or suffering you've faced in your mindfulness practice, on retreat or otherwise, at one point or another. And again, for today, let that distress be no higher than a 6 on the distress scale. It might be a time when you had a lot of difficult emotions, really busy, wild and crazy thoughts, or, enduring physical pain, or even a mix of these. So recall that suffering as best you can now, perhaps feeling an echo of it. And then it can be skillful means to place a hand on the heart when you're struggling, because just that gesture releases oxytocin and is soothing in and of itself. So I would invite that now. And then ask yourself, what would the Buddha suggest? How might he direct my practice right now when facing this challenge? And see what comes up. And then you could ask yourself how your own teacher or teachers have suggested that you meet this difficulty in the past. And then next, you can ask yourself, what kinds of wisdom and heart practices have helped sustain you in other challenging practice moments? So drawing on your own inner wisdom, self-compassion, and awareness to support yourself right now as we're doing this guided reflection. So opening eyes, right? In our retreat together, in times of challenge, we invite you to set an intention to invoke a refuge of love and wisdom. We light this flame as a symbol of the refuge of the Buddha, an awakened heart and mind. So next is the refuge of the Dharma, and Dharma in Pali means truth or nature, really points to the true nature of things or reality. Particularly for our purposes, the true nature of the cause of suffering and its end. And for this weekend, we'll keep this really simple because the Dharma is quite a expansive set of teachings, but we'll keep it really simple and define just the second of the Four Noble Truths as the true nature of suffering. So that would be that suffering is caused by clinging. We spoke about that in spring retreat a lot. So the way we would, harness that, so just that knowledge, suffering is caused by clinging, that's a refuge, right? Because that's like, suffering is caused by clinging. Just that knowledge is a kind of refuge, right? So when you find yourself struggling on retreat, you can simply ask yourself, what am I clinging to? Or what am I resisting? Because you know that if you're suffering, you're clinging to something or resisting something. You can count on that, right? And oftentimes that simple question is just enough to help you find some ease Just that question. You could also then investigate the feeling of clinging in your body, or you could bring some heart practices to the equation. But really just asking yourself that simple question is a really, really good start, and it's a wise refuge. So we'll be doing a guided reflection too on the refuge of the Dharma. So I invite you to close your eyes again. And softening the body, and taking a mindful breath or two, and recalling a moment in practice when you were struggling in some way, and let it not be more than a 6 on the 10-point scale. And it could be the same difficulty from earlier or a different one. Recall it as thoroughly as you can. Perhaps feeling an echo of it now. And ask yourself, what am I clinging to? And see what comes up. And then ask yourself again, what am I clinging to? And see what else comes up. And then a third time, what am I clinging to? Noticing what happens in your body, heart, and mind as you work with this repeating question. And opening eyes. In our retreat together at times of challenge, we invite you to remember the refuge of the Dharma, the teachings, the path we're on, the clear knowledge that suffering is caused by clinging, right? We light this flame as a symbol of the Dharma we know. And next, the refuge of the Sangha, which in my heart and mind is clear to me that the refuge of the Sangha is queen of them all. And those of you who are here in the spring know that royalty was brought up a lot. I think it was like the king of Dharma poisons, right? Sangha, queen of them all. Everybody's you know, right? The most powerful refuge because it actually contains the other two. It does. It contains the other two, right? So Sangha means practice community in Pali. So Sangha can take the form of a group of people in a class, on a retreat like this, or at a community sort of gathering, or even all practitioners going back 2,500 years who sincerely practice and study and learn together as one community. This journey we're on cannot be learned in a vacuum. And it thrives best in the fertile ground of the shared wisdom, experience, and compassion of other students, including the wise voice of a teacher. And many of you here are members of Black Mountain Sangha, and I am absolutely certain you recognize the priceless nature of practicing with Sangha, especially ours. Because look, since we all have Buddha nature inside of us, right, we said that earlier, when we meet and practice with, say, 20 people, we learn from 20 Buddhas right there, right? So the refuge of the Buddha is embedded in a Sangha, right? Yeah. And then the authentic wisdom and sharing that everybody is, engaging in together enhances the wisdom of every other member. Growth is exponential. How can it not be so with so many Buddhas in the room? So a Sangha is the embodiment of wisdom, the Dharma, and Buddha nature, compassion, blossoming in a group of people. Many of you are familiar with self-compassion phrases. This is a moment of suffering. I'm not alone. I care about this suffering, right? Practicing with a Sangha is an act of self-compassion because we know when we're practicing together that we all experience suffering, right? In our practice together, we know that we're not alone, right? And in our practice together, we see that we care greatly about each other's suffering, right? So Ananda, the beloved disciple of the Buddha, once asked, Master, are good spiritual friends fully half of the spiritual life? No, Ananda, the Buddha replied, good spiritual friends are the whole of the holy life. Right. Taking refuge in the Sangha involves remembering the sometimes difficult shared journey that we're all on, that we're not alone, and that our human birthright, compassion, is woven through the fabric of this gathering. Here, even though we won't be interacting, the compassion is palpable. So, Sangha is queen of them all. And this is my thing. It's not, I've never heard anybody say it, but it's true, right? Sangha is queen of them all. All right, so for our guided reflection now, we'll close our eyes. And softening the body. Taking a few mindful breaths. And bring again to your mind and heart some challenge you've had in practice, on retreat or otherwise. And call the details of the experience to your mind and heart as best you can. The physical sensations, thoughts and emotions. And then repeat to yourself, I'm not alone. I share this journey with compassionate friends. And repeat a few times just like that. I'm not alone. I share this journey with compassionate friends. And noticing what comes up in your body, heart, and mind as you reflect. And opening eyes. And we invite you to remember the refuge of the Sangha, both the Sangha that we've created here and all Sanghas, the love and support we share for each other and for the practice. We light this flame as the symbol of the Sangha we treasure.